doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
Жди секунду. Не показуйся.
Поліція! 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 Я адвокат! Свідок! Пожалуйста! Включіть камеру! Включіть камеру! Пожалуйста! Ні! Я цього не говорив! Вони не побили! Пане Миколаївич! Викладу! Пожалуйста!
Що так можна людину бити, душити, кулаками бити? Ви його відпустили?
سويداء حرة أبية شامخة عادت في السنة والرومان في النصيرية يا من كنتم تدعون أنكم بني معروف هاي الآن تحت أقدامنا حرة خالية من رجسكم يا طواقيت يا من تحديتم السنة ها هم السنة الآن ها هم السنة والله لم تأكلوا معنا إلا دقائق يا كلاب لم تأكلوا معنا إلا دقائق هذا هو نصر الله يا من استعنتم في إسرائيل الله أكبر الله أكبر أشرف المال إنه نصر الله وهي الأوطان والمصطفى فالزاج أيضا وعاهدت نفسه أن تخلصكم يا رب.
من داخل مدينة السويداء دخلت القوات الحكومية لضبط الأمن داخل المنطقة. حصلت اشتباكات مع قوات المجلس العسكري التي تحاول الوقوف أمام القوات فض النزاع للسيطرة على المدينة وبسط الأمن داخلها. لكن لله الحمد تندحر هذه المجموعات والقوات الحكومية اليوم داخل المدينة بفضل الله عز وجل.
السويداء دعت
أخذناها بحد السيف قهرا، أخذناها مقالبة وقصفا. تكبير تكبير الله أكبر.
كل دولة إسرائيل إن شاء الله موقف اليوم ولا حدا بمرق.
Sorry about that. Welcome back to the SCIF. Really appreciate you joining us today. We've been up all night, so please excuse the production hiccup there. Lot going on, big time. Consequences of the forever wars. I want to say hello to the crew. You're welcome to be cleared hot in the chat. Whatever you want to say, let's get the conversation going. Really appreciate all the engagement every day. But you saw there in the opening video what we're going to talk about today. First, you saw a 60-something-year-old man being press ganged into a vehicle. He got away because the police showed up. But what government in the world would pull a 60-year-old man off the street and force him to the front? This is absurd. This is what you're funding. And we're going to get into this at Ukraine SitRep with Pete Blaber in the second hour. Just absurd behavior by the Ukrainian regime. And that is happening all over Ukraine. And you've got instances where the Russians are bombing the mobilization centers, mobilization as in kidnapping centers to send men to the front, and the people are cheering. So this is what your government in the United States is funding. Consequences also in Syria. We just had the Trump administration release sanctions in Syria. This is a recent sign in Syria with the new jihadi who was part of Al-Qaeda previous to this, but now he got a haircut, he put on a suit, he's all of a sudden legitimate. Well, he's sending its troops into the Druze areas to murder Druze and Christians. So what goes there, guys? The Israelis have tried to protect some of these, but it's an ongoing fluid situation. There was an airstrike on one of the Druze column or the Syrian columns moving into Sawida, which is the Druze area in southern Syria. So much going on. We've got a lot to discuss today. I mentioned the second hour, we've got Ukraine SitRep with Pete Blaber. We're going to dig into everything. Keith Kellogg's trip to Ukraine. Trump now wants to bomb Moscow and St. Petersburg, according to the Washington Post. What is going on, my friends? Again, consequences of the wars. Once you uncork the bottle, where does it go? What happens next? Can you control it? That's the big question. And also, Ed Vidal will join us here shortly, and we're going to talk Florida because a lot's going on there, and it's really kind of a microcosm of what's coming in the future with Byron Donalds looking to be governor. Ed's been all over that, the team at the Miami Independent. So we're going to dig into all that. We're going to take a quick break. Oh, by the way, check out whatfinger.com. They post a lot of our material and our posts and our articles, and just a great partner, and we really appreciate them being on our team. We'll be right back. We're going to take a break. We'll come back and talk with Ed Vidal and then Pete Blaber second hour, but stay with us.
I'm a naturopathic doctor. We are in the world of medicine very acquainted with many modalities, but probably the one most familiar with everybody would be two things: homeopathy and herbals or herbs, maybe some nutrients too, vitamins, minerals, that kind of thing. Now, we do know a lot about the drugs because we have to find out what drug you're taking affects you and what nutrient it depletes you of, because most every drug pharmacy product will deplete something. So we have been trained and we have a database that we can check into that says this is going to take your B12 away. The pharmaceutical company cannot patent organic substances made by the body. You're not born short of Advil. You're not born short of Ritalin.
Yeah.
You can be born short of insulin, right? Mm-hmm. The answers to staying healthy and keeping away from even SARS or any of those things getting into you is staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You and I get sick because our terrain gets out of balance. Well, that's the same thing in the soil. You and I are made from this thing called dirt. And when we get out of balance, we have the same thing happen. Weeds start to grow in our body. Right? And that's what we want in our body. We want nutrients that we don't understand how to get well enough yet because our suppliers are lacking knowledge on nutrient density foods.
So this is what drove you to develop this, was your knowledge of this, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. You know that.
excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, My Pillow Percale bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Percale bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7, the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining us today. We've got second hour Pete Blaber, who's going to come on. We're going to do the Ukraine SitRep, very popular, especially with our military audience. Pete has people on the ground in Ukraine fighting on the front. He knows what's happening, and you're going to get the right from the horse's mouth with Pete in the second hour. But now I want to bring in Ed Vidal to get what's going on in Florida. He's the man down there in Miami. Ed, thanks for joining me today, short notice, because I saw something on Byron Donalds, and I wanted to get you on and find out what's happening politically in Florida. A lot of people jockeying for position right now, right?
Right. Well, Florida has been kind of a free-for-all this year, and it's really the result of Governor DeSantis's bad judgment. His bad judgment last year and the year before was to run against Trump. He was led astray by his own ambition. He fell for people like Paul Ryan, Karl Rove, Jeb Bush, and he was pushed by his very ambitious wife, Casey. And, you know, here's a guy who's a basically good conservative, but he went against Trump. And he is paying the price. He shot at the emperor and he missed. And so part of what he did when he was running was that he strong-armed all the Republican legislators in Florida, just about 90% of them endorsed DeSantis against Trump, whether they wanted to or not. And so after the election of Trump, there's been kind of the kickback, you know, there's the backlash for what he did. And so what's happened this year is that, and these are not good people necessarily on the other side. There's no good people in politics, just less bad or different bad. So this year, the entire Republican establishment, starting with the Senate president in the state Senate, the House Speaker, Danny Perez, and the Commissioner of Agriculture, who would like to be governor, Wilton Simpson. He's the wealthiest politician in Florida, and he came by it honestly. He's an egg farmer, and you know how egg prices have gone up. So the whole establishment really came out against him. So starting with the beginning of the year, DeSantis called for a special election. As soon as the legislature rebelled against him, called his special session into session, and then called it out of session 5 minutes later. Then they started their own session, and the purpose of the session was supposed to be immigration enforcement. They passed their own statute on immigration enforcement, and they named as the chief immigration enforcer, not the governor, as should be, or the attorney general who had been being appointed by the governor, but the commissioner of agriculture, who has never been interested in an immigration enforcer because being part of agriculture, he wants cheap labor. So they have been, the legislature has been in rebellion against DeSantis. And this is what he gets for shooting in the king and missing. So now, Byron Donald. Byron is a very bright guy. I love listening to him. I listen to him on Stuart Barney and Larry Kudlow on Fox Business. He makes a lot of sense on economic issues. He has made a good impression in the House of Representatives. He was one of the people suggested for Speaker. He's an ambitious, outgoing guy. He has a degree in financial management from Florida State. And so he, to his credit, has a career, has made money in business. So he doesn't go into politics to make money. That is a good thing.
That is a good thing.
So so that's good. He could be a financial advisor in Naples, Florida, and make even more money. So he's interested in politics. That's good. And so he has very early on this year, he has come out and started a campaign for governor and to introduce himself. He has been in Miami area for 4 times in the last 3 weeks. So he's really working hard at it. He's trying to stay on good terms with DeSantis, but he's obviously on the side of the legislators that have rebelled against DeSantis. He has an endorsement from Trump, which can be decisive sometimes, not always. He has that endorsement, and he's politically ambitious. So is his wife. He goes back to the Tea Party days in Naples, 2009. And so generally, you might think this is a good candidate. All the Republican Party of Florida, which was originally put in by DeSantis, Evan Power, has come out in favor of Byron Donalds. Most of the Republican executive committees at the county level are supporting him. Certainly Miami-Dade and Broward County supported him in a breakfast last Saturday. So he's got a lot of the establishment. But here's where the question come up. And it came up because I like him. I was gonna endorse him. What the hell?
Yeah.
But then I started looking around and I started asking some grassroots conservatives. And they have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
The questions go back to, and I wasn't in Florida at that time, it goes back to Trayvon Martin. And apparently he came out in support of Trayvon Martin. And they did some research, and there's an article in the Daily News, the Naples Daily News 2012, distributed via, it's inside the article on that Doug wrote. Distributed via the USA Today network, and it specifically has a picture of him. And the reporter says Byron Donalds was at a vigil in support of Trayvon Martin.
Let me bring that up right now. This is the article, and if you go to MiamiIndependent.com, here it is. Byron Donalds, the 2 decisions, candidate uniting Republicans, bridging racial gaps, channeling Bob Graham's everyman legacy.
And that was a favorable article by Doug.
It was.
Yeah.
But we got we got pushback yesterday, which is good because they're reading the paper from the Donalds campaign, from their comms director. And he said, your outlet reports as fact that Byron expressed public support for Trayvon Martin. This never happened and is a political smear frequently shared by anonymous Twitter accounts to try to diminish the congressman's overwhelmingly conservative bona fides. In 2012, Byron attended a vigil in his capacity as a youth leader to promote unity and a nonviolent response from those who were protesting. He never publicly supported Trayvon Martin. Any reporting otherwise is fake news and campaign rhetoric being used by political opponents to inaccurately smear the congressman. So if this is the image you're talking about, and the quote by the reporter from Scott McIntyre, Naples Daily News, where he says he's in support of Trayvon. We'll let the reader decide. That we'll let them decide. But that's what you're talking about right there.
Yeah, the campaign should write a letter to the Daily News of Naples, Florida, to contest that, because that's where our sourcing came from.
And we responded to them that way, like this is what we're referencing.
Right, we're going back to the sources. So you got Trayvon Martin, and then you got George Floyd. He was very sympathetic to George Floyd. I mean, George Floyd was a lifelong criminal. He had abandoned 8 children in Houston. That he was up in Minneapolis because he was such a thug in Houston that he needed to get out of town. And he died from a drug overdose, a massive drug overdose. He said that he couldn't breathe before he was arrested. Yes. So he was in trouble from a drug overdose. The police officers put him down. There's no evidence that the police officer choked him or crushed his trachea or anything. That police officer and all the police officers were railroaded by the Minnesota legal system.
That's what the initial autopsy said, right?
Yeah, he was not crushed. He didn't have his throat or breathing tube crushed. Therefore, he died from a drug overdose that he administered to himself. He would have died anyway. So that was used for, the Black Lives Matter burning and $2 billion of insurance. That was terrible, and it was also political. So that there's no reason to be sympathetic to George Floyd, and at least not from the point of view of a grassroots conservative or libertarian here in Miami who's looking to vote for somebody for governor.
Well, it looks opportunistic
Yeah.
to me. It looks like he was just, reading the tea leaves and
Right.
deciding which way to go. That's what it looks like to me.
Right. Yep. No, he was very soft on that. Then there's a J6. In J6, at first he really criticized he called protesters. J6 was a false flag operation all the way. It was the deep state setting up a riot where there was no riot. None of the so-called insurgents were armed, for example. And the one guy who was armed was Michael Byrd, an affirmative action diversity, equity, and inclusion officer in the Capitol Police. And I say this because the year before, he had left his gun, his weapon, in the bathroom. He went to the bathroom and he left it there. And he wasn't disciplined or anything. He just, hold him to a lower standard. So he was a DEI officer, and he deliberately and wrongfully shot Ashley Babbitt, who was a unarmed young lady. There was no reason for that shooting, and you could see how deliberately he did it. And so, what was Byron's response to this? He said that the Capitol Police were heroes who saved lives. Baloney. Yeah, they were not. Michael Byrd was not a hero, and he was not. Byron was not sympathetic to the J6 political prisoners at all. Even when they got out, he didn't do anything for them. There were a lot of them from Florida. He did nothing for them. So these are three people that you don't get to support. If you're a concrete conservative in Florida, you don't vote for a guy who's supporting these three people. But that's not all. The reason this is important is that the governor, any governor, has a lot of appointment powers. He appoints this guy and that guy and so on. And you got to think, what kind of people would he appoint? What kind of people would Byron appoint? And we've got these three examples. Well, there's a fourth example. In the Republican Party of Florida, earlier this year, with Byron's support, a new vice chairman was elected. His name is Jovante Teague. He is a former prison guard in the state of Florida. He had to resign his job as prison guard and lose his certificate of criminal enforcement because he was engaged in sex with one of the women inmates. So this is the kind of guy he would appoint. This is the kind of guy he has supported to be vice chairman of the Republican Party of Florida. So what it tells you is that, Byron may have some good economic instincts and policies, but he's not a trustworthy guy. He hangs around with people that you can't trust, that you don't like. He's going to be making a lot of bad appointments. And so, but then the question is, who's the alternative?
Yeah, that's the question.
So I have an article in the works that I don't have all the facts yet. But basically, I think DeSantis is going to run a counter slate. And so he has appointed, or he will have appointed, 4 of the top statewide officers in Florida. He appointed the Attorney General Ashley Moody to be U.S. Senator. He appointed his general counsel, James Utmeyer, to be Attorney General, replacing Ashley. Utmeyer is turning out to be okay. He was wrong to, he was wrong to be part of the DeSantis team. But okay, he's not a bad attorney general. He's the guy who came up with the idea of alligator Alcatraz. So he's okay. But then there are 2 more appointments that he has to make. The Lieutenant Governor, Jeanette Nunez, resigned to become president of FIU. And the state CFO, Jimmy Patronis, was elected to Congress to replace Matt Gaetz. So I say, and I predict, and I can't publish this until it happens, might be this week, that DeSantis is going to appoint Senator Jay Collins, a senator that has supported him as lieutenant governor, and then will support Jay Collins' campaign for governor against Byron Donalds.
Wow,
I think
that's news.
That will. I have to wait till he appoints him lieutenant governor, and that might be this week or next week. But I think that DeSantis is going to strike back. He's going to have a slate. He's got Ashley Moody for senator. She's going to have a challenge from one of the congressmen, probably Corey Mills. James Utmeyer, I don't think anybody's going to challenge him, but nobody prominent for attorney general. And then the lieutenant governor will be running for governor with DeSantis' support. And I think that's good for Republicans. It's good to have competition. It's good to have people measure up and you can see this or that. I mean, I don't think either of them are great, but it's good to have competition. So I predict that there will be that competition for Byron Donalds. And it's interesting because it's going to be the Byron has the Republican Party of Florida, Republican Executive Committee establishment. So it opens a lane for Senator Jay Collins and DeSantis, his supporter, to appeal to the grassroots conservatives. This will be the first time that's happened. And maybe we grassroots conservatives can get something from DeSantis and Collins and something promises about election integrity legislation.
Yeah, how about free elections? That would be good.
Right. That would be good because Byron's not mentioned that. Maybe Byron will promise that too. But I think, and this is why it's so important, the primaries, especially in states like Texas and Florida, which are Republican states, are the place to make the big decisions. And I'm very happy to see that there is likely to be a competitive primary for governor here in the state of Florida with Byron Donalds, probably against Senator Jay Collins. We're going to have competition, I think, for the Senate. Ashley Moody is going to be challenged, I think, by one of the congressmen. I think there'll be, I'm not sure about the state attorney general position yet, but I think, for example, another position that's open is state CFO. I expect DeSantis to appoint Senator Blaise Ingoglia, who's a good friend of his, good guy. I think he will be challenged by Senator Joe Gruters, who will have or already has the endorsement of Trump. So you're going to have two Trump-endorsed candidates, statewide office, going against the DeSantis slate. And I say, bring it on. I love competition. It's the only way to keep these bastards honest is to threaten them with the loss of their job.
Totally. Ed, if I take a break, can you stay around for one more segment? All right, we'll be right back with Ed Vidal from Miami Independent.
Celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7. I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah, hurrah. Oh, the men will cheer, the boys will shout, the ladies, they will all turn out and belong.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I'm here with Ed Vidal. Ed, I wanted to talk to you about anything else you have on the elections, but also the electric vehicles in Miami. You wrote a really outstanding article on what's going on with that kind of scam in Miami-Dade. So where do you want to start? Anything else on elections you want to get out?
Well, on elections, I have a message for Elon Musk, and I'm sure he's on the SCIF, or somebody is he's watching. If you want to have an effect on politics, third parties in America are for losers. America has a two-party system, and you just have to pick which one will work for you and make your impact there. These third parties, they might work in Europe, but not here. So what you got to do is play in the Republican primaries. That's the place to affect change. If you want to affect Congress, play in the Republican primaries. Support grassroots conservatives and libertarians to take on some of these rhinos. Same thing in Texas. Go to Texas. Trump has just endorsed some real rhinos in the Texas state legislature. Take him on. Support a conservative against these rhinos in the Republican primaries in Texas. And I think that is the best thing that Elon Musk can do. So if he's listening to the SCIF, anybody who knows him, tell him that's the thing to focus on. Not a third party, but an American Republican caucus that plays in the Republican primaries.
That's a really good point, because the money is the problem in these primaries, right? You and I know at the Republican level, it's always about resources. So if somebody came in and funded some of these guys, it would make a real difference.
That would make a difference. If he wants to have an impact, that's the place to do it. Now, the electric vehicles, what a joke.
This is the article on the Miami Independent. Let me just throw that up, miamiindependent.com for our audio audience, but go there and read this, but go ahead.
But, I think everyone in America, not in Europe, but in America, has pretty much realized that this whole climate change hoax is a hoax. It's a total hoax. It's designed to give power to technocrats over individual citizens. It started right after the end of the Cold War because, the Soviet Union was dead. So the globalists had to come up with something else, and it's a hoax. And what's happened is that here in Miami-Dade County, we have a woke, progressive county mayor because of the incompetence and corruption and cowardice of the Republican establishment. And so this county mayor has been pushing for electric vehicles. They don't work. They fall apart. They were made by a company based in California that's gone bankrupt. They went out of business. In fact, before they went bankrupt, even the Biden administration had them recall their vehicles because they were catching on fire. That's one of the problems electric vehicles have. They catch fire and you can't put them out. So it's been a real scam. And now there is a $400 million deficit in the county budget. And the reason for that deficit is the county mayor has been spending out of control on things like electric vehicles that don't work. That there are 3 graveyards in Miami-Dade County of electric vehicles that don't work. Imagine if you have electric ambulances, electric fire trucks, and electric police cars, and there's a hurricane, they're all going to catch fire. You're not going to have any protection.
Or they won't be able to recharge. I mean,
forget it. And so there's a $400 million hole. There's going to be a meeting of the county commissioners later this week. And I think it tells you that you have to pay attention to local politics. And you have to say, why did the Republican Executive Committee of Miami-Dade County fold and allow this progressive mayor to be reelected? There's no excuse for that. We're paying for that now with this, she's proposing to raise gasoline taxes, and she needs to just cut back a lot of the bureaucracy that she's hired. But this is what happens if we don't pay attention to the local politics. We get stuck with these people because you cannot count on the local Republican establishment to put up a fight. Heck, they're paid off. She's the county mayor. She spreads the money around. A lot of the Republican leadership, they have businesses that depend on being county contractors. If you're a county contractor, you cannot go after the county mayor. So, you're no good in politics. You need people in politics have to be able to have their own sources of income and professions, a business, a trade. If you're a carpenter, you are not dependent on the government. If you are running some kind of business that depends on government contracts, you're totally beholden to the government. So,
income housing, that kind of stuff. That's
Yeah,
really
low
bad in
income.
my
Oh, that's public housing. That,
Yeah.
look what's happening up in New York. Now we have this big, it's the same thing here in sunny South Florida. We have allowed the really far left to take over because the Republican establishment was not up to the task of holding the line and even electing Republican governors. I'm sorry, politicians. Here's what happens. Dade County voted 55% for Trump. And yet we have a woke progressive county mayor elected in the same year.
Yeah.
It tells you the local Republicans are not doing their job.
It also tells you the machines are doing what they're
Oh,
supposed
that's
to
part
do.
of it. That's part of
Yeah.
it. Vote by mail is another one. The Democrats almost always win vote by mail, but the Republican establishment supports vote by mail.
Surprise, surprise. We know what goes on in the Republican Executive Committee in Miami-Dade.
Yep.
What about the new sheriff? How's that doing?
She's doing okay. I think she's going to be challenged in the Republican primary in 3 years by the police chief of Homestead, Mario Knapp. But she's doing okay. The real test will come for her next year during the FIFA World Cup. There are going to be 6 or 7 games in Miami, and it's very important for her that they go without any incident. Last year, there was a big hullabaloo and almost a riot at the final of one of the soccer tournaments. So it's important that she do a good job in there.
Well, let's talk elections. I know you are very involved in the Election Integrity Brigade, which is kind of a spinoff from the Miami Republican Executive Committee because we got no progress there. What's going on in the EIB? I think there's a meeting this weekend, right?
Yep, we have a meeting this weekend. We're bringing some of the candidates. One is running for Miami County Commissioner, City Commissioner. The funny thing is in Miami, there are 5 commissioners. 3 of them voted to postpone the election this year. So they voted by themselves to extend their terms.
Wow.
They can't do that. And that's where we're counting on Governor DeSantis and Attorney General Utmeyer to bring in a lawsuit or something, maybe get rid of them. We in the Miami Independent, I had an article supporting a real reform candidate for Miami mayor. His name is Emilio Gonzalez, and he has filed a lawsuit, a very serious lawsuit with some real lawyers behind it, challenging this attempt by the Miami Commission to just extend their terms without getting consent from the electorate. And that is a real tyrannical move. And it shows you the kind of corruption. And these people are Republicans, or half of them are Republicans, or they say they are, but they voted to extend their own term. They have to get approval from the electorate. If they want to change the elections from a year like this, there it is. Emilio Gonzalez, he is the reform candidate for Miami mayor. He is suing to stop the extension of the terms for another year. He wants to make sure that we have elections this year as originally scheduled. And I think the commissioners who voted to extend it are totally off base on the law. And I'm hoping that DeSantis and his attorney general will make an example of them and make sure that the elections are held this year. And again, that's a good campaign move for DeSantis and Utmeyer, the attorney general. If he can show that they're such reformers or supporters of clean elections, that they, I hope DeSantis dismisses all 3 of those commissioners and replaces them or something like that.
Well, you've got, I mean, it's kind of just up in your grill, the arrogance. I mean, the same thing going on in Georgia, where they just make their own rules and do what they want to do, and who the hell with, the people of their state. Is the Republican Executive Committee getting involved in this to try to stop it, or
they do nothing? They don't get involved in stuff like this. They just let it go, and they leave it up to citizens. That's why we founded the Election Integrity Brigade, so that we're independent of the REC. We're not held back by the REC, and we can fight on our own terms. So that's what we're doing this Saturday. We're going to have one of the candidates for Miami City Commission. She's also been pushed back for another. She's running for the election this year. It's an open seat, and she's been told, "Oh no, the incumbent gets another year." Baloney. So that'll be a fight. The other speaker is Maria Magdalena, who is leading the fight on the electric vehicles and really the whole budget issue with the county commissioner. So if you
She's
have
been
time,
very involved in the whole UN Agenda 21, all of that
absolutely,
stuff.
she's a real fighter,
Yeah.
and she'll be talking about that. In fact, she's the one who inspired me to write the article on electric vehicles. She's the one that sent me a lot of the information. I write in response to our audience, you know.
Yeah.
So she called. So if you have time, Saturday at noon in the Longhorn Steakhouse in Doral, we'll be there for an hour or two. The Election Integrity Brigade, Saturday, July 19th, 12 noon in Longhorn Steakhouse in Doral.
Yeah, fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
And Ed, you've got a long list of really high quality articles on the Miami Independent. What do you got in you talked about one you got in the hopper. What else you got cooking?
Well, I'm going up, Miami really is the sixth borough of New York. So I've gotten all these requests about this new guy, Mamdani. Mamdani. So I've written 2 articles on him. The first article said, this guy is a mainstream Democrat. There's nothing out of the ordinary about him. He stands for everything that the Democrats are. He's a globalist, he's a communist, and he's a jihadist. And that is, we are really the sixth borough of Manhattan. And then this one's the latest one. I had to write another one. When we look at what's he doing, which is totally out of the mainstream, New York City has had a socialist Democrat ethos in their municipal government since the 1930s. Fiorello LaGuardia, much heralded, much admired. He was a progressive Republican. He was a New Dealer. You talk about Republicans are rhinos today. He was the original rhino. He was aligned with Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. He was the one who brought rent control to New York City. He's the one who drove all the subways and overhead rail lines bankrupt during the Depression and turned them into publicly owned transportation system. He had rent. I already talked about rent control. He forced all the peddlers. Manhattan used to have a lot of sidewalk peddlers. He forced them all into municipal markets. What's wrong with these sidewalk peddlers? So if you look at, Mamdani wants government-run grocery stores. You're crazy. But the foundation, my point is, the foundation for a lot of the socialism in New York City goes back to the 30s at least, with this progressive Republican. It's Republicans that often open the gate to the socialists and the communists because they don't do their job. And so that's why we fight the Republican establishment first, because they're even worse than the other guys. So we start our fight for freedom with the Republican establishment. So
I think there's some cartel influence there too, with all the real estate and the money laundering. I mean, there's some of that going on in Miami for sure.
There is, and there's also Cuban government. That they have agents and they have people that they've blackmailed, and there's a lot of bad influence. You know what they say? South Florida is a sunny place for shady people. So that's where we are.
One more question. What about the real estate market in Miami? What are you seeing there?
It's definitely evening out. It's just flattening out. Obviously, if Mamdani gets elected, there's going to be a lot more demand. But it's the whole real estate, the condominium market is a tragedy. My mother was in one of those old condos until 15 years ago. Then she had to go back to Chicago to be in assisted living, but she couldn't have afforded a big assessment to fix up the building. And so I can see all these old people are living there and they can't afford all these assessments and they're having to move out. Developers are buying it up at paying very low prices, and in some cases, I guess they're going to tear down the building and build something else. I mean, it's a real shame. The other factor that's going on is a lot of people can't afford to live in Miami anymore, especially if they're retired, they're middle income, and they can't afford to even live in their own houses. And so, I said that's okay because I raised my kids up in Westchester County, New York, and as soon as they finished college, we left Westchester County because it's the highest tax rate in the world. We moved to Houston and then Miami. So, but I think there's a lot of transitioning going on, and a lot more people, whether Mamdani wins or not, a lot more New Yorkers are going to be moving down here to Miami, to Palm Beach. And I think there's no stopping that. There's just a real push. I think the people that can't afford to live here, I'm sorry, but you can't stop. I know places up in upstate Florida where you can live for a lot less.
Oh, for
Palm
sure.
City.
What about Miami Beach? Is the market still hot out there?
Yeah, the market's still hot. That's a unique place, but it's we have an event there tonight, but it's still hot. It's everybody from New York, they want to come down here and be in a hot spot. We stay away from it. We live out in Doral, so we're fine. But yeah, I think the whole area from Brickell up to Wynwood is turning into a global city. And Ken Griffin, who brought his Citadel security down, he's building a super skyrise up in Brickell. Huge, and it's already congested. You're not going to be able to get around. It's going to become like you have to go and park in the outskirts and then walk around because you can't.
And there's
get
really no train system to speak of. I mean,
there's a train. We used to live in Dadeland. There's a train that goes down there, but it's just for example, Miami is so hot. I remember when I went to a meeting, if I was wearing not a suit, but even a jacket, I would get out and I would sweat to death. By the time I got to the meeting, it was like I took a shower.
Yeah.
So Miami doesn't really
like Atlanta. The train exists, but it's not great.
it doesn't really lend itself to what most people need, and most people need to drive in their own cars, and it's just very congested. So but Miami from Brickell up to Wynwood is becoming a real city, and it's really unfortunately replacing New York. And I think people are going to be leaving New York even more than they were before. I'm going to be up there in August, and I'm going to be writing a little on different I'm going to do a food review like I did for Paris.
Perfect.
Reviewing the Flatiron District and all that. My grandson, who's 5 years old, likes to walk around, and we take the buses and all that. So we'll be doing that.
Excellent. Look forward to the content. Ed, thank you very much, my friend. Always great to hear from you. All right. Talk soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight, and then eventually I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke, I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
We have put slog, 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 slogging over Africa. Foot, 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 slogging over Africa. Boot, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Today is July 15th, and here's your mission brief for today. Did Byron Donalds support Trayvon Martin? You can make your own call. Go to the MiamiIndependent.com. We talked with Ed Vidal about this. This is a big deal down in Florida right now, and the campaign is obviously touchy about this subject because they confronted us over the article, which we added an editor's note to get their point of view out there, to be fair. Number 2, Trump wants to bomb St. Petersburg and Moscow. We'll talk about that in a second. Tucker pushes back on the Israeli threat. We'll dig into that a little bit, probably after Pete Blaber comes in, because there's some discussion to be had there. The Syrian disaster, another one that is, another brilliant move by our national security empire complex that put this new guy in Syria, which just on the side kills Christians and Alawites at will. And then Epstein is causing MAGA division in the party, in the movement. Again, another thing we'll discuss, but I want to just briefly bring up, and we're going to have Pete Blaber at the top of the hour to talk about the Ukraine situation on Ukraine SitRep. But this article is on cdm.press right now, and it is Washington Post reports Trump wants to bomb Moscow and St. Petersburg. So here is retired General Keith Kellogg, Trump's envoy to Ukraine, meeting with Zelensky yesterday. And the Washington Post is reporting that Trump asked Zelensky why he had not yet struck Moscow in a big way. And Zelensky replied, "We can if you give us weapons." In response, Trump said that Ukraine should put more pressure on Putin, not only in Moscow, but also in St. Petersburg. That's big news. And one thing we learned in the military is the enemy gets to shoot back. So what will that do? We talk about consequences. We follow on, talk about blowback. We talk about opening the can of war and what comes out. You can't control it once you open it. So we're getting close to that point. It's pretty disturbing. We're going to talk about that with Pete. The Washington Post also reported Trump is considering transferring Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. These are long-range, low-level cruise missiles. They're fairly slow. In the past, they've carried nuclear weapons, although they're not designed for them now. They're not currently included in the military aid package, but their supply may be activated later as a tool to pressure Trump or pressure Putin if Trump wants to. So Zelensky is thanking Keith Kellogg and Trump for their support. And by the way, another one, Trump, and we talked about this yesterday with, actually, I talked about it on Rob Manish's show, which I did yesterday afternoon. I forgot to mention that. You can catch that on Rob Manish's show on X. But Trump is giving Moscow 50 days to make a deal. Otherwise, there'll be secondary tariffs of 500%, possibly 100 to 500%. But the 50-day deadline, what does that remind you of? It reminds you of the Iran 60-day deadline, and then Trump used B-2s on Iran while he was negotiating. So I'm sure Russia is thinking, you're giving us 50 days. Does that mean the B-2s come to Moscow? Should we just go ahead and launch the first nuclear strike now and get it over with? This is what we're dealing with, folks. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev said online yesterday or this morning early, Trump issued a theatrical ultimatum to the Kremlin. The world shuddered, expecting the consequences. Belligerent Europe was disappointed. Russia didn't care. So there was a lot of talk that this was a empty threat that Putin or Russia or Trump made against Putin in Moscow. But I see it differently. I think this is a real threat and needs to be dealt with and discussed in a proper way. We've got the chat is going. Thank you for all the engagement there. And we're going to take another break, and then I'll be back with Pete Blaber, and we're going to do the Ukraine SitRep, something that's we're very good at. So stay with us.
I'm a naturopathic doctor. We are in the world of medicine, very acquainted with many modalities, but probably the one most familiar with everybody would be two things: homeopathy and herbs, maybe some nutrients too, vitamins, minerals, that kind of thing. Now, we do know a lot about the drugs because we have to find out what drug you're taking affects you and what nutrient it depletes you of, because most every drug pharmacy product will deplete something. So we have been trained and we have a database that we can check into that says this is going to take your B12 away. The pharmaceutical company cannot patent organic substances made by the body. You're not born short of Advil. You're not born short of Ritalin.
Yeah.
You can be born short of insulin, right?
Mm-hmm.
The answers to staying healthy and keeping away from even SARS or any of those things getting into you is staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You and I get sick because our terrain gets out of balance. Well, that's the same thing in the soil. You and I are made from this thing called dirt. And when we get out of balance, we have the same thing happen. Weeds start to grow in our body. Right? And that's what we want in our body. We want nutrients that we don't understand how to get well enough yet because our suppliers are lacking knowledge on nutrient density foods.
So this is what drove you to develop this, was your knowledge of this, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know that.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, My Pillow Per Kill bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Per Kill bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7, the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great, and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs, or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Per Kill bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
Well, I want to play a quick video. We're going to bring Pete Blaber in for a second for Ukraine SitRep in a second, but I want to play this video with Mark Rutte, the NATO head, with President Trump yesterday in the Oval Office.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a honor, great honor, to have a friend of mine who's become very friendly over the last number of years. We knew each other before, but Mark is the head of NATO, Mark Rutte, Secretary General of NATO. Highly respected by everybody that knows him, but in particular the European countries. They have great reliance on him, and he's done a fantastic job. And we had a tremendous meeting, I guess it's about a month ago, and I think Mark will tell you that it was really perhaps more important the date of November 5th. That was the election day. Maybe that was the most important, because we've made tremendous progress together. And one of the reasons that you're here today is to hear that we are very unhappy, I am, with Russia. But we'll discuss that maybe a different day. But we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs at about 100%. You'd call them secondary tariffs. You know what that means. But today we're going to talk about something else. And as you know, we've spent $350 billion approximately on this war with Russia and Ukraine, and would like to see it end. It wasn't my war, it was Biden's war. It's not my war. I'm trying to get you out of it. And we want to see it end. And I'm disappointed in President Putin because I thought we would have had a deal 2 months ago, but it doesn't seem to get there. So based on that, we're going to be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple. And they'll be at 100%. And that's the way it is. That can be more simple. It's just the way it is. I hope we don't have to do it. But
I want to bring in Pete Blaber now and discuss this. Pete, thanks for coming on, my friend. Appreciate your time today.
Yeah, good to be here, Todd.
So, what do you think of that? The first thing I thought about, Pete, when he said, okay, we got 50 days is, okay, are the B-2s going to fly on day 51? That was the first thing that came to my mind. But what about you?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to take it. You know, on the one hand, as you and I have been discussing, and I think anybody who's looking at Ukraine with a common sense perspective has been advocating for, which is the cessation of any support for Ukraine and to pull Americans out of Ukraine is the most effective way to bring this war to a quick end. What we're seeing again is reality versus propaganda, and unfortunately, I believe that President Trump is getting far more propaganda than he is reality. And so, what we can do right now is talk a little bit about, how did we get here? How did he come to this decision? And, it goes back to the propaganda. And unfortunately, that's what he's getting from most of his key advisors around him. Do you have that? Do you have a Kellogg clip? If you don't, I have this quote.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't get that one.
Yeah. No, it's okay. It's okay. We don't need to play it because it's hard to hear him anyway. But Kellogg this week gave a press conference. He was in Ukraine, and so he told a bunch of European reporters, we're trying to get to a ceasefire. We've gotten to a reasonable point with Ukraine, but Russia never follows through. And, he laments when he says this. And so, again, as we go through these, I'm going to read a couple of these to you. It's important to do what someone should be doing for President Trump. And that's the best way to separate propaganda from reality is to say it out loud so you can see. When you say out loud propaganda, you expose how senseless it is. And usually with facts, when you say out loud facts, you see that they stand their ground and that they make sense. So Kellogg is talking about a ceasefire, and this is the first thing that needs to be said out loud, and semantics matter here. The U.S., when we say ceasefire, we mean a temporary stop to the shooting. But that's not what Russia wants. Russia wants a permanent peace. And the reason they want a permanent peace is because of so many statements and a few I'm about to read from Merz and Root. And thanks to Victoria Nuland and the Biden gang in 2013 and 14 and all their phone calls being intercepted, Russia understands this is an existential threat right on its border. And again, you have to say that out loud, because would we enter a ceasefire with the Houthis if they were on our northern or southern border and then just leave them alone? No.
Because both sides are worried about them just rearming, right? I mean,
exactly. And the statements that Zelensky has made prove that he's not looking for peace. He's still talking about the downfall of Putin, the breakup of the current Russian government. And, he's not saying anything about the issues that Russia has put on the table since June of 2024. And
follow the Russian government. I mean, that's the Atlanticists, wet dream, right? I mean, that's what they want. Yeah.
Right. And then we had another statement from Marco Rubio earlier this week. I've grown to like Marco Rubio in his new job. And, he came out and he said, since the beginning of 2025, there's been over 100,000 Russians killed, while Ukrainian forces have lost significantly fewer, but also significant. And again, these type statements, Rubio cannot follow the world at the level he needs to. Any Secretary of State, especially when you have the Iran-Israel thing going on, and a number of other brush fires all over the world. So that's obvious. But when we say things like that, we lose credibility across the world. And I'm going to talk about military in a moment, because it's reality. And you can't possibly make that statement if you just understand a few of the basic facts on the battlefield. And of course, saying them out loud exposes the senselessness of the propaganda.
Yeah.
So at the same time, we have the European Union, as if they're part of a choir. They're singing at the same time and laying it on as thick as possible about the threat from Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. And, we talked last week about what Mark Rutte said, which was, his hypothetical. If Xi Jinping decides to attack Taiwan, the first thing he'll do is call Putin in Moscow and tell him, I'm getting ready to do it, and I need you to distract Europe by attacking NATO territory. Those are his words. And they, in a way, they kind of show how stupid he thinks the people of Europe and the West are. Yeah.
Well, we have a show on Europe where we have some guys in Austria and Germany and UK, and they're telling me, Europe is propagandized. The population believes this crap.
Yeah. No, they've lost their freedom of speech, and the media is worse, if you can believe that's possible, than they are in the U.S. Just on Rutte's thing, I had to include this. Medvedev came out with the classic comment. He said, Rutte is clearly gorged on too many magic mushrooms beloved by the Dutch. So I thought that was good. And it's kind of true, because the only basis of fact for that statement, for that fake telephone call, is someone on mushrooms. There's no, anyone who studies the Russia-Chinese relations knows that it's completely farcical. So the final guy I'll tell you about is Merz. Again, the German chancellor, guns blazing, diplomacy. Here's his statement. Diplomacy's been exhausted. Moscow is threatening the very right of our people to exist, eroding political freedom throughout the European continent. Again, no basis.
Meanwhile, Germany's arresting people in the middle of the night for Facebook posts.
And outlawing popular political parties.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Russia's made it manifestly clear what's necessary for peace. Since June of 24, their demands have been the same. And so, given those demands and the existential threat, why would they agree to a temporary stoppage of gunfire? It doesn't make any sense. So now let's look at the reality, both social and military. And, we're looking at this in the context of Trump's decision and what he should be looking at. So he's talking about starting support back for Ukraine. And let's just look at the reality on the ground. A number of polls came out this week in Ukraine. So Zelensky's popularity rating has plummeted to 14%. And an overwhelming 60% of Ukrainians don't want him as president. 74% of Ukrainians want negotiations with Russia. So these numbers alone should tell you the people of Ukraine do not want what we're proposing, which is a continuation of the war. I'd also add on Zelensky, he just replaced all his European, U.S. major country ambassadors. And I saw on the news, someone asking why. Well, the why is very simple. He's agreed to elections. Elections are going to come up. And in a page out of the Democratic Party's 2020 playbook, the absentee ballot is going to rule the day because of the millions, and it is over 1 million Ukrainians who have left and who are living in European countries and in the West. They're all going to be able to vote in this election. And guess what?
All the ballots. Yeah.
They're going to be counted in each embassy and then aggregated back in Kyiv. So he just replaced every one of these individuals with someone I'm sure that has promised to support the hijinks they're going to pull off. And so we already could look at this and say the election they're going to have is going to be fake.
Well, I asked a source this week because he replaced his the prime minister with the former deputy prime minister, Yulia Svindinko. And I asked a source in Kiev about her, and he said she's a criminal owned by criminals, organized crime group behind her, ties with Yermak. All this change of government is not a change, it's an anecdote. How do they change the bedcloth in the barracks? They change the cloth from the barrack 1 to barrack 2. They change criminals from one group to another group. That was a comment that I just got on a lot of these new people. You're right. They're putting new criminals in place. Because Makarova, the ambassador of the U.S., is a money launderer. We've outed her many times. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just it exposes one more motivation for the obstinance Ukraine has shown toward negotiating. He just wants to stay in power, and he knows if he loses power, he's not out of that country, he's a walking dead man.
Yeah.
So, Zelensky's got personal survival motivations, and there's a number of others. The EU's motivation is separate from that, obviously. But again, on the state of Ukraine, an exiled MP gave an interview 2 days ago, a guy named Artem Dmytryk, and he was asked whether the people of Ukraine believe they could win. And he answered that the people know this is impossible and they want peace, just what the polls are saying. He also just restated that the people hate Zelensky, and that's why they're so ecstatic when these TCC centers get bombed, as we talked about last week. And that's happening all over Russia. They're, spray painting, thank you, putting social media, the addresses of these TCC centers on social media so the Russians will find out.
These are the bounty hunters that are pulling people off the streets for $200.
Yeah.
They're not even part of the government. They're private organizations. I played a video in the cold open. It's about 2 minutes. I won't do it all now, but this is a 60-plus-year-old elderly man. I'm not elderly. I'm 60 plus, but this is him being pulled off the street by one of these bounty hunters. I mean, it's absurd.
Yeah. Look at that.
Жди секунду. Не показуйся.
You can hear him calling for the police there. I mean, if you're pulling 60-year-old guys off the street to send them to the front, there's a real problem, right? You got a problem.
Exactly.
You need your manpower.
Exactly. And this is another example of reality versus propaganda. Propaganda includes not showing basic behaviors, basic examples of everyday life, events that occur. And of course, the worldwide mainstream media, that's their number one weapon is don't show it, don't talk about it. And that's why we show almost every week, because when you see that, and remember, we make sense with our senses. When you see that, that alone tells you everything is completely awry in Ukraine. The purpose of the war does not make sense to the Ukrainian people. There's a feedback loop that reinforces that, the feedback loop of people who go to war, forced conscription, or volunteers and never come back, are never seen again. And those numbers, as we're about to talk about, are stratospheric. They're gigantic.
Well, let me ask
but
you, in the beginning, Trump admitted this. He said, you're pulling guys off the street to Zelensky. And there was a lot of truth coming out of Trump. He cut off the weapons flow. He's like, I want peace. You're stopping peace. And then something happened. What do you think happened? Is it the people around him? Is it a threat? Is it a negotiation tactic? Is it a way to get something else from somebody else? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. It's the same, a little bit of the same what we talk about Rubio. You know, Trump does not have time to talk to guys on the ground in Ukraine, which is where I get my baseline information. I confirm everything from those guys. And he doesn't have time. He doesn't have time to look at tapes like that, which are, speak for themselves. You can't fake that. Those happen all the time. You and I could play the entire episode. We could play tapes of forced conscriptions like that. Yeah. So he's not seen that stuff. You remember after the the Ukrainian drone attack on the Russian strategic bomber base. Within days, Trump came out and he was saying, "Hey, we're trying to get the ceasefire, and now Russia's back bombing Kyiv again." And you're wondering, is he not paying attention to any of the other acts that are going on in Ukraine? Ukraine just bombed their strategic bomber base in the north part of the country.
That's nuclear war. I mean, that's
exactly
nuclear war, right?
Exactly. So they had every right to send, at the time, 500 drones. The Russians were up a week ago to 700 drones, showing they've hit a sweet spot with their military-industrial complex. But now let's go. That's the reality socially in Ukraine. And I'll just sum it up this way. By supporting the war, by sending more weapons, we are not supporting the will of the Ukrainian people. And again, you don't have to be Ukrainian to understand and be able to say with conviction is in the best interests of Ukraine and Ukrainians. So let's go to the battlefield. So in just pure terrain, in May, we talked about this, Russia took 450 kilometers. In June, 556. In July, today is the 15th, I went up to the 14th. Russia's already taken 425 kilometers before they even hit the halfway point of the month. So, 500 kilometers a month, square kilometers a month, and the war's going in one direction. We talked about the forced conscription. Desertions are still skyrocketing. The number that's on record right now is 247,000 men have deserted the Ukrainian army. 127 of them have deserted this year alone. Again, it's July 15th, so we're in the 7th month, just past the halfway point, and we almost have half of the total desertions just this year. So that's not insignificant. That tells us they've always been against this war from the beginning, but now it's on steroids. The Ukrainian people do not want to send their loved ones to die, and the men don't want to go either, as we just saw.
I think there's a difference I just want to point out between East and West Ukraine. I think some of the Western Ukrainians over toward Lviv in that area that are more the nationalist, like you could say neo-Nazi areas that were Bandera, supporters of Bandera, etc. I think some of them are all in, but because that's just their history, but the rest of the country is not. I think I just want to put out, there's a lot of different ethnic groups in Ukraine, and not all of them speak the same language as far as this war is concerned or have the same agenda.
And as we've said before, Todd, they have no voice. The Russian media is controlled by Zelensky and his regime 100%, thanks to USAID funding. So it's they have no voice, and you and I have to show those videos because there's no other source for them, even though they're as common as can be on the ground. I did talk. I asked one of my buddies to get some actual guy on the ground Ukrainian fighter perspective, and I got a pretty good snippet that I've necked down. He just said, "Hey, he asked him tell me how it's going on the battlefield." He said, "Sometimes we hold our own, but we get overrun all the time. And that's mostly caused by lack of coordination between units and inability to trust the teams around us due to lack of training and commitment." He also said the Russians were always good. They've gotten much better, and they have way more people and more equipment than us. And finally, my buddy asked him, "What do you want? You're, a very competent, hardcore fighter. What do you think the best course action is for Ukraine?" And he said, "We need to negotiate with Russia and find a solution to end the war." And so I just sum up the battlefield. We go to Ukrainian losses, and these are by the week. The week of June 20th, Ukraine took 9,350 casualties, killed and wounded. 1 week later, the June 27th, 9,130th. The week from 27 to the 4th, 9,100, and the 4th to 11th, 8,860. So if you just say 5,000 killed a month, that's 20,000 per month. We know in May they lost 25,000.
This is why it's not on TV, Pete, right? I mean,
that's why there's no reporters.
I mean,
exactly.
The human cost alone is a reason to say, stop the killing.
Yes.
I mean, 5,000 guys a week, most of them elderly or younger. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah. This is the evolution of, the Ukrainian population is being severely affected by this war.
It's a depopulation effort. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
It is, but it's not, there's no end in sight. From a cultural perspective, they're the same people. They're Slavs.
Yeah.
And, one thing about Slavs is they can be stubborn. They can hang on to a position forever. And so Ukraine appears their leaders to be firmly in that corner, and they've got to get out of that. We put we helped put Zelensky in power. We helped keep him. We, meaning, again, the Biden administration. But for President Trump, to even talk about, starting support again for Ukraine, it turns it into his war because you can't.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can't call it Biden's war when you're consciously contributing to this death and destruction that we just laid out. And again, the propaganda appears to have won the day from these White House advisors to President Trump. And we got to get back to reality. And I just will say it again. The way to do that is to say it out loud, to pressure test it and expose the propaganda and reinforce the facts.
Well, it's tough love, right? I mean, I'll say it again. I love the Ukrainian people. They saved my life when I was there during the invasion. I mean, I have very close friends. I had a refugee family in my house for almost a year. I mean, I love the people. They're fantastic people. They're warm, they're intelligent, they're educated. They know their history. They're smart. And obviously they're smart. They're surviving in this environment, but they're being destroyed. And that is what kills me. I mean, we are doing it with this propaganda, as you say. We're destroying them.
Yeah. And it is propaganda. You've got the Lindsey Graham crowd. You've got the EU crowd whose rationale is monetary. It's Russia phobia, the historical hatred of Russia. But I really believe on the EU side, none of those leaders have any chance of getting reelected. whether you're talking EU, NATO, Germany, France, or Britain, they have no chance unless they can create some in extremis situation, and that's what this fear mongering is about. That's why, keep the war going. Our economies are redlining. So what's the intellectually lazy way of building your economy? It's to turn to the war machine and the military industrial complex and ramp that up to create a fake economy. And that is what I believe is going on. But again, President Trump needs to step back. How does he want to be perceived, to be remembered? It should be as the wise world leader, and the wise world leader needs to be able to tune out all this propaganda noise that he's getting and just do the right thing for the people of Ukraine, the people of Russia, and the people of Europe, because this thing, is a tinderbox, and one stupid decision, and there's a lot of bad leaders who could easily make a stupid decision, could turn this thing into a nuclear confrontation. And anyone who denies that is just denying reality.
Well, I mean, I also think this is an old war that we're fighting for somebody, and it's really disturbing. There's an article on our site where they had the initial negotiations in 2022, and after the invasion, and the representatives of the Ukrainian side showed up with Galicia flight jackets, which were the Nazi squadron, and they showed up to negotiate with those flight jackets and the patches on.
Wow.
I'm like, just in your grill. So I do think there's some old war being fought here based on, World War II, essentially, against in some old grudges, family grudges. If you look at the history of, Victoria Nuland's from that region, so is the family is, and so is Chrystia Freeland out in Canada, and so is last Secretary of State. I'm blanking on Blinken. His family's from there. So there's some old stuff going on here. But anyway, what else, Pete? What do you got? What else is?
That's it. Just propaganda versus reality, and the way to expose it is say it out loud, and you'll see. And we need more of that for President Trump. The facts need to be said out loud to him, and hopefully he'll see the light.
Well, it's tough love. Like I said, he needs to hear the truth, and he's not getting it. I mean, Keith Kellogg is not going to give it to him. So neither is not capable. They're bought off or something. Anyway, Pete, thank you very much. We'll see you next week. I really appreciate your time.
You bet, Todd. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7. I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down, and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah, hurrah. Oh, the men will cheer, the boys will shout, the ladies, they will all turn out and they'll all...
Welcome back to the SCIF. I hope you enjoyed Pete Blaber. Always a treat on Ukraine SitRep. We get the information direct from the front, direct from guys on the ground. You're not going to get that anywhere else. I tell you right now, you're not going to get it. I haven't seen it anywhere, put it that way. So let's talk about a few stories before we close up today. This one in Israel is fascinating, and it's not going away. You can find it on our Zionism.com site. It's Tucker Carlson. So Tucker gave a speech at the Turning Point USA event recently where he accused Israel of running a blackmail ring with Epstein in Washington, D.C., which has caused them to have control of the U.S. government to support wars in the Middle East and other things. So the Israeli government released a statement from the guy that did it was the Minister of Diaspora Affairs, Amichai Chikli. Well, the letter said, "Dear Charlie," meaning Charlie Kirk, "like many others, I've been following your remarkable journey, blah, blah, blah. I watched Tucker Carlson's speech at your conference, and I was filled with sorrow. I don't know whether Jeffrey Epstein was an intelligence asset for any agency. I would certainly like to know. In particular, I would like to understand his connection to the kind of people who sought to sell out the land of Israel to the Palestinians, people like former Israeli Prime Ministers Ehud Barak and Ehud Olmert, who both appear previously published Epstein documents." So I believe Ehud Barak, who's the former Prime Minister of Israel, this is not in the statement, but lived in Epstein's house in New York City and Manhattan for some time. And that's what Tucker referenced as to why this is likely a Mossad operation, in his opinion. Still, the statement says, "You have noted there is no evidence that Epstein was acting on behalf of the state of Israel." And he goes on to say that there's a serious problem. He brings up Candace Owens and Daryl Cooper, who's an historian that Tucker's had on his show and gave some credence to his historical reporting. But so then there was so that statement came out yesterday, and then the Israeli government, former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, you could say, threatened Tucker by saying, "We will no longer tolerate this." Actually, the word was, "We just won't take it anymore." So Tucker came back and said, "You just won't take it anymore. Instead of issuing threats on social media, why don't you sit down for a rational interview on Jeffrey Epstein's ties to the Israeli government? We'll reach out to your office in the morning." So this was yesterday. So this story is cranking up. We're going to stay on it because it's something we know a lot about. We try to provide both sides, and we've had a lot of pro-Israeli coverage, and we've had people on who are not so fond of Israel. And I think that's the best way that our audience can get educated and make their own decisions. And we'll continue to do that here at CDM. Another story I want to bring up is, which I've talked about briefly, is the Syria story. So in the last 24 hours, there's, let's take a step back. So the Assad regime controlled Syria. They were an Alawite minority family for a long time. They were pro-Russian. Russia had a base at Tartus and forget the name of the air base, also where they had forces. There was a civil war. The CIA and Turkey supported Sunni jihadists to attack Assad and remove him finally last year. So a new government was put in. Galani, you can see in the picture there with the beard, he was an Al-Qaeda, ISIS guy, militant. They put him in a suit, gave him a haircut, tidied him up, and now he's legitimate. Trump dropped the sanctions, and there was a big, attaboy across Washington that we've put a new regime in place to better serve U.S. interests in Syria. Well, immediately after coming in, the forces loyal to Galani murdered about 10,000 Alawites, which were the previous supporters of Assad, and also a lot of thousands of Christians crucified them literally in Syria. We put some videos of that a while back. So now the Druze, which are a minority population in southern Syria, have been targeted by this government, and it happened again today. Israel has supported the Druze, but now the Sunni jihadis are moving on the Druze in southern, I think it's Suida, which is a city in the southern part of Syria. The Israelis attacked them today again. So this problem is not solved. We played a lot of this in the cold open, and there were protests inside Israel that you're not protecting our Druze brothers. But this is just a mess. So once again, we go in and we root out a government, and this is what happens. It's very similar to what happened in Libya and other places, and just a disaster in these countries. And it's now, are you going to have another civil war? Well, you're having it right now. It's just not as big as it might get. So I just wanted to point that out. I called it the Syrian disaster this morning. Government troops target Druze and minorities in Suida. And here's the jihadis running, having fun in that city this morning.
الله أكبر. آية سويداء الآن حرة أبية شامخة عادت في السنة والرومان في الخيرية. يا من كنتم تدعون أنكم بني معروف، هاي الآن تحت أقدامنا حرة.
Can you imagine if your family and your children were there? What would you do? Just horrific. Another story I want to discuss: Supreme Court allows the Education Department to resume layoffs. This is huge. It's a win for Trump. I mean, he's making big progress in a lot of areas. This is one of them. Deconstruction of the administrative state. You saw all the wailing and gnashing of teeth of State Department employees coming out over the last few days. Hopefully that will continue. We need to make Washington a lot smaller so it has less power. I would like to see some of these agencies moved out of D.C. and remove the imperial capital's wealth, because it's just absurd and obscene if you've been there lately. But this is a good thing that the SCOTUS is allowing continued deconstruction of the administrative state. Another story, the Epstein files. We put out this earlier. Let me just bring this up. Early in the week, we said, with Trump covering up the Epstein DC blackmail operation, MAGA leadership is up for grabs. Susie Wild should be fired. Somebody's giving Trump really bad advice on some of these issues. I think this was really poorly handled. There's been a lot of pushback recently saying, well, look, who cares who had sex with anybody years ago? Who cares if, what Prince Andrew did with a 17-year-old girl? Well, first of all, there's the moral aspect. So people should care about trafficking young women. And also who's giving the advice to Trump for doing this. And the other thing is, if there is a blackmail ring with Epstein, no matter who's behind it, if it's the CIA, if it's the Israel lobby or whatever, we don't know. Israel denies it, but somebody is getting blackmailed and somebody is controlling these politicians in DC. That's completely obvious. Everybody, as Tucker said, admits it. So somebody's getting blackmail. Who's running it? And it's not that somebody had sex with somebody 20 years ago. It's that this operation still is there and is controlling our government, and we need to lance the boil. So that is the reason that I think the Epstein, whatever, it's a file, it's a list. And yeah, the Democrats may have played with the list and gone after Republicans and deleted all the Democrat stuff, but this should have been handled better. And I think the president to just get in the Oval Office and go after a journalist for asking questions wasn't the way to handle it. And I think he's getting bad advice. A lot of people are saying, well, I'll show you something that I got a response from somebody yesterday about this whole thing. And I thought it was an interesting point, is that this translation of Trump's long-winded Truth Social post, the translation would be, everybody shut up and let my team do my job that you hired us to do. There's more going on that you don't understand, and I'm going to deliver. I didn't get shot in the face to have a bunch of whiny armchair quarterbacks tell me how to do my job. That was their translation of what Trump was saying on Truth Social. Yeah, there probably is a lot going on that we don't know about, but in my view, this was poorly handled, and I think we should get to the bottom of any blackmail operation in Washington, D.C. So with that, I think that's all we got today. Let me just point out a few sponsors. Please support us. Go to mypillow.com, use promo code CDM. Fill up your basket there with stuff you need for your family. Why would you go to Bed Bath & Beyond or or Walmart or any of these big box retailers who are not MAGA? Why would you support them when you can go to Mike, get really high quality product? You know, I bought some sheets from Walmart years ago, and they were made in China, and they were blue, and I got them out of the washer. They were yellow. So you don't want that. You want really high quality product. Mike delivers that. Towels, sheets, bathrobes, slippers, clothing, dog products, all kind of stuff he has there. So I bet if you go on mypillow.com, you will find things that you don't know he has. And so just play around on the site, and maybe you'll order something. Maybe you'll see something you really like. And use promo code CDM, and that'll get you the best discounts. Also, we talked about Nucleo Boost. This is let me bring that down. This is the Nucleo Boost powder. These are the capsules. You can get them all at cdmnutrition.com. You heard Dr. Waterman talk about how to fill in the potholes at your cellular level. This has the bioaloe. You can see it right there. That gets it into the cell. It's like with the zinc and the hydrochloroquine. The zinc is the bullet. The hydrochloroquine gets the bullet into the cell. That's the same thing here, where you get these nutrients delivered into your cells, fill the potholes so you can fight disease. And what I learned something with Dr. Waterman, we're going to have him back on soon, but that a lot of the organic foods out there, they don't put a lot of the fertilizers in the ground that some of the non-organic do. So you don't get the nutrients. A lot of the soil's been depleted, and you don't get the nutrients, even though it's organic and doesn't have the pesticides. So if you're buying organic food, you may have a bigger reason to get what you need, your body needs. And this is 1 scoop a day. It's got everything you need. And it's just fantastic. You can check this out at cdmnutrition.com. That would be cdmnutrition.com for our audio audience. And check out the subscriptions once a month. It's much cheaper than just the bags on their own or the capsules. These just came out. So a lot of people don't like the powder. They'd rather, because it's not candy, but it's fine in yogurt or oatmeal or whatever, or a smoothie. But the capsules are just as good for those who don't want the powder. So, wow, been a big show. We'll be back tomorrow. I've got some really interesting guests coming this week. One of them is Steve Richardson, I believe is his name, who's the main reporter from Main Wire that Tucker had on recently about Chinese infiltration and control of the Maine government. So we're going to talk to him. We've got several other really good guests coming this week. A lot of people calling in wanting to be on the show, so I appreciate that. And we're growing in our audience, and I appreciate that. Please tell your friends. We're on podcast, any podcast provider. You can listen to it in the car. Put cdm.press in your daily scan. We need the traffic, always need more traffic. Check it morning, noon, and night. We have great content. I got a quote from somebody this morning. What did he say? He said, let's see, exceptionally good stuff on CDM today. Yeah, I agree. We put out some really good stuff, and if you want to be the smartest in your room, at your office, around the water cooler, at the lunch table, you need to watch the SCIF and read CDM at least once a day and get up to date on what you need to know. So with that, we'll be back tomorrow at 10, Monday through Friday, 10 to noon Eastern. And tomorrow night at 7 Eastern, we'll have the Georgia show. So much going on there. It's hard to stay up with. The X accounts on the Georgia issue have been off the charts because you got politicians in Georgia who got a lot of money from the Frost Ponzi scheme, and then the Secretary of State said, give it back, and they don't want to give it back. I did nothing wrong. I don't have to give the money back, even though it was money taken from retirees, and to get it, they lied. So we're going to stay up on Georgia. You can find out everything. Go to georgiarecord.com if you're interested in that state. But it is the keystone for the future of the country, the election fraud, everything. Georgia's key. It's the economy of the South, and it's key for the United States' future. So check us out on the Georgia show tomorrow at 7 and on the SCIF tomorrow at 10. So thank you again today. We'll see you soon, and stick with us. We'll be back with more this week. Take care.